What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Financially Free Friday episode with Megan, your host, and I've got Travis with me. And we're going to chat about some things that maybe he incorrectly said on the Tuesday episode this week. Let's jump into it, Travis.
Well, just to be clear, it might have been incorrect, but maybe it will be correct shortly after this airs too,
Yeah,
right?
there's a
So
lot of
it just
movement.
I usually record the pod like a couple days or few days before it comes out, full disclosure. And with the way life is changing, I feel like I've lived and aged decades in like 4 weeks. So I guess we're just gonna have to record like 5 minutes before the pod releases from now on. And like even then it might be out of date. So sorry
Yeah,
guys, I appreciate your forgiveness of us.
yeah. Let's talk about Department of Education. What has happened since you recorded that probably a week ago?
Yeah, I mean, what a great question. So, I mean, I think that like first off, um, the fact that they have not paused like or stopped Department of Ed at the moment that we recorded this yet,
Yeah,
even though all the reports were saying they were going to me almost suggests that there was a strategic leak that came out and like almost tested the waters about what the views would be of people to see what would happen if they leaked that Department of Ed was going to close and what kind of like key constituencies would freak out and just to kind of see what or maybe just distract from like that week's news cycle or something, right? And then when they realized, oh, maybe this isn't a smart idea politically to do at this very moment, they didn't do it when they could have. And so I think that there's actually like a pretty key pattern in the administration of let's push really hard until we come up against political realities of what we can do and then let's stop. And you might say that's
yeah.
ridiculous, but it's actually I think you can look through different things they've done and they already are trying to walk back some things. So I'll give you an
Hmm.
example, right? Like the USAID like execution in broad daylight. Just saw a post from Marco Rubio, Secretary of State, that 18% of USAID is going to remain under the State Department's purview. That's true that they killed and eliminated the vast majority of USAID, right? But 18% of it's still around. They talked about the elimination of all these government employees, and
Yeah,
then there was some news
IRS was a
stories.
big
Yeah,
one.
and there was some news stories about some like Trump voting veterans were being laid off, right? And then you saw them start talking about, well, we're going to keep the good people, right? Whatever that means, right? But we're
Mm,
going to keep the good people. We're not going to eliminate absolutely everybody. If somebody's doing a great job, we want to keep them. So I think that what that's telling people is that there are like that they like the big headlines, I think. They like the big
hmm.
announcements coming out, right? And then if there's like something that's like really controversial, they like tone it down or they like, move on to the next thing, right? They've done a couple
Yeah.
things where they've done some like, some freezes of funding that were immediately litigated and they decided they didn't want to get involved in litigating it. So then they just said, "Hey, just kidding. We're moving on to the next order," right? That was like the grants and loans order. Remember that one? I know that happened
Hmm.
in like 1847. But I'm just kidding because like that's how it feels. Like how many things have happened since then, right? But the stopping loans and grants like that lasted for like a day and or
Hmm.
something, and then they were like, "Oh, this is going to be litigated. We want to move
Never
on to the
mind.
next thing." Just kidding. So we're rescinding that
Yeah.
order and issuing a new one. So I don't know. I think that what we're finding is like I think my overall take on the Department of Ed closure potentially happening was right, which is that if it did happen, it would be targeted towards like elementary and high schools
Hmm.
and like policy surrounding those, and like the student loan program would continue to operate, and maybe it's going to be at Ed, maybe it would get moved over to Department of the Treasury, right? If they could, if that they would have it their way, but like student loan
Hmm.
programs are not changing just because of Department of Ed closing down. But what is changing, which we maybe could talk about, Megan, is just how gutted like the support groups at Department of Ed are for things
Yeah.
like PSLF complaints and stuff like that, right?
Like CFPB, that's something we've talked about. I actually had Justin come on last Friday's podcast episode to talk through constituent services, like leaning on
Yeah.
that to help with like federal programs that are causing you some issue, like the IRS, Department of Ed,
Yeah.
CFPB,
I
but
think
now, yeah.
I think that's definitely the way to go because like during the first Trump administration, I would routinely just say if we have something that we need to fix a complaint for, how do we find the, person who's on the education committee that represents you, right? Or the senior senator in your very small state, which is probably going to give you lots of attention compared to if you lived in California.
Hmm.
Or yeah, I would always try to be strategic with clients of like, who do you submit a constituent services, request
Yeah. That's what
through?
Justin said too. Yeah. He
Yeah,
said be
yeah.
strategic. Don't double up. Don't like send it to multiple places because that'll delay
Yeah.
things.
Well, and even target who's getting elected next. I mean,
Hmm.
it's no lie that like the senators and even congresspersons view constituent services as a thing that could really sway a lot of high information voters, right? That would be maybe really disinclined to vote for somebody based on their party ID, but like they got me the passport. The family's Italy vacation happened. Like I might hate everything single one of their reviews, but at least Senator so and so got me my passport, you know?
Hmm.
And that's like kind of a real example of me using constituent services once. Is like, I mean, it's kind of interesting that like I even fell for like a passport scam. That's kind of like
Oh.
vulnerable to admit, you know? I mean, because it's the same thing like the student loan scam. You think that may I'd be smarter than that, but I think that the reality is like all these things are just if you're not an expert in the space, it's
Hmm.
it's it's easy to make a mistake on anything, right?
Yeah.
And
Well,
so
you're
I
busy
just
and you
yeah,
get like so much stuff, so many
right,
communications, so many headlines. So like it's almost
right.
like what do you pay attention to?
Well, and so I reached out to my senator's constituent services office. I like overnighted the passport stuff they needed. The people got everything taken care of literally within like 2, 3 days. And we
Wow.
were we were, we were
Hmm.
gonna go to I forget where we were gonna go, but it was some like European trip, and it was like during COVID, so like nobody was processing anything at all, like at the post
Hmm.
office, right? It was just so slow, and I just forgot because I think we had like a I don't know really young kids, and we're like I was so tired. Like I think I just forgot.
Yeah.
Like, oh, you need to give it like 6 months lead time.
Oh.
And so but that the thing is I got a resolution. They fixed it for me. And usually
Hmm.
with these client constituent services things, you have to sign a waiver, like a privacy waiver form. That's like their first step is you give them authorization to like act on things on your
Yeah.
behalf.
Speak on your
And then
behalf. Yeah.
yeah, and you do that, and then like I said, if it's senior senator in a small state, or it's somebody up for reelection, or it's like a House member who's on like a key committee, you just figure out who that is, and if you have a PSLF problem, if they're not processing buyback, if they're not if they're giving you an incorrect payment amount, usually we have tons of success getting those cases resolved,
Hmm.
and that's just what happens too. It's what's kind of a nice effect about that is if you tell people in mass, like with our audience is a decently large audience. So you tell all these people, go start submitting constituent services requests, it gets the attention of Congress. And they're like, oh, there's all these problems with programs not functioning correctly like they
Yeah.
were supposed to. And so it does have like a kind of a nice unintended consequence of raising awareness of problems that need to get fixed too.
Hmm. Yep. Yep. Yeah, definitely. If you didn't listen to that episode last Friday, go take a listen. Justin worked in constituent services for a bit, so he's got lots of experience, like actual boots on the ground experience of what it's like for one of those representatives to be helping somebody with something. So, all right. So we stand now. How are you feeling now? Like, what do you think is going to come out in the news this week about Department of Ed or about stuff related to student loans? Any predictions?
I'm feeling terrible. I'm
Yeah.
exhausted. I feel like I'm not sleeping great. I'm just kidding. I mean, I'm feeling okay. I just thought I'd have a
Yeah.
little bit of fun first. I mean, so I'm
Still haven't cut your
I
hair or your
I
beard.
still I think I'm going through this phase. Like, so this is a podcast, so people that are listening are not going to see it. But yeah,
Yeah.
I'm going through like a abandoned mountain man on like a cabin on the top of a mountaintop phase. Somebody turned me into a meme the other day, which I've never
It's
been turned into a meme.
hilarious.
And they showed a picture of me when I started Student Loan Planner, and I was so
Clean cut, like your
trim,
beard,
clean
like
cut,
lined. Yeah.
so young and earnest looking. And then they were like, after 9 years of I don't know, Department of Ed lying to you or something like that, and they showed my picture now, and it was
Mountain
just
man.
it was it's not fair because I did that freaking Instagram live on like 11 p.m. on a Saturday after we had just had a party at our house with like 50 people, and that was when they issued the stop work order, and I was like, bleep it, I should get on Instagram live even though I'm tired as bleep. And I should go just like tell people why they don't have to worry because this is going to be terrifying to people when they find out.
Yes,
And
yeah.
I always kind of if I can take 5-10 minutes to explain something when something terrifying happens to reduce people's stress levels, I like to do it. I enjoy it.
Hmm.
And but yeah, I got turned into a meme, and at least
It's
everybody got a
great.
laugh out of it. Yeah. But where were we going with that again?
Yeah, just where
um,
you think things are going to go this week, next week. What are your predictions? I
yeah.
know predictions are
Okay.
even they, may not even matter, but
So predictions are they're going to get the application up for IBR in a couple weeks.
you
That's my
think so?
prediction. I
Okay.
think that they took it down because they don't want the servicers to have that pick the lowest plan for me anymore. They don't want
Yeah, I
servicers to
hated
have
that
that.
option. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think that they're going to want, they don't want that option on the form. I think they use this injunction as like an excuse to just get rid of that choice in the application. And then I
Hmm.
also think that they might take down pay and ICR as options to apply on that form. I'm not sure if they'll do that because
Mm.
in theory, pay and ICR could be completely legal plans that just have the absence of forgiveness as a feature, right? So that's
Mm.
something that people are not really thinking about right now is that, you could still have pay operate, people could still sign up for it. You could still get credit for IBR forgiveness, but it might not count for, you might not be able to get 20-year forgiveness on that actual plan. And that's a
Hmm.
really complex like distinction for people, right? And so that's why we have to just wait around and see what the court's final rulings are going to be on all this.
Yeah.
You
When do you
know,
think that's going to be? When do you think final rulings are going to be?
probably after the NCAA tournament. I'm just envisioning all these judges sitting on the couch, drinking beer,
Hmm.
eating potato chips, not working, just kind of, probably, who knows, maybe get a little side action on some gambling parlays or something. And then after the NCAA tournament, I'm kidding a little bit, but I also kind of wonder, like, what the hell, like, if you're a lifetime appointed judge, oh my gosh, what a great job, right? Because, like, basically nobody can tell you anything. Like, what are they going to do? Impeach you, Like, that
Hmm.
happens only if you murder somebody as a federal judge, pretty much, right? I'm kidding. Hopefully, any actual people that think I'm maligning the judiciary understand this is a joke. Satire is legal in this country, at least right now, and so hopefully they'll get off their bleeps and make a ruling. I think probably in the late
Yeah.
spring would be my guess. I think
Okay.
to be fair, I think probably the way all this goes is I don't know. They probably have a gazillion cases. They probably
Hmm.
don't have enough staff. If I'm being more
Hmm.
charitable, right? And they probably just take their sweet time to decide on cases unless it's like an extreme emergency. And so I think that's probably why it took so long is they probably have a lot of other cases they're working on and didn't feel like
Hmm.
this one was something that needed to be prioritized if I'm being charitable. And then eventually they made that ruling that just sends it back down to lower courts. Lower courts have got a lot of things in their mind. This is
Hmm.
also something that's not a matter of life and death, right? So they're like, well, we can put it off. And so I think they'll make the ruling, probably in the late spring. And then I think it'll probably get appealed if it's not conservative enough to the
Hmm.
liking of the state of Missouri. Missouri can appeal it to the Court of Appeals. And like, I mean, I'm not a lawyer. I have to admit that, right? So people want to email us and tell me the legal part that I don't understand. But my assumption is they would appeal it. And even though you've got the Trump administration in defense as the defendant, right? That happened before with like Sweet v. Cardona, right? Where like that Department of Ed absolutely wanted all of the uh, for-profit schools to get complete forgiveness for borrowers, right? Like that was not really like a plaintiff defendant kind of situation that was adversarial. That was a situation where like, yeah, technically it was Sweet v. Cardona, but it was like something that all of those people wanted to have happen, right? So in
Hmm.
theory, it says Sweet v. Cardona. So I'm assuming the same would be the case for, state of Missouri versus Trump, because it would just say like, we don't like that they said the state plan was kind of okay, and so we're appealing that ruling to the Court of Appeals. And then the Trump admin could like show up to the court hearing and just be like, yeah, I agree. And then
Hmm.
the judges will be like, oh, look, the plaintiff and the defendant agree. Let's make a ruling. So I think that probably the Eighth Circuit is still going to have the final say because that's a very conservative court. And so I would assume the state of Missouri will be very happy with that ruling. But I guess it's possible that the lower court could just be like, I mean, I guess a dream scenario would be like the lower court saying, yeah, save is too far, but Congress very clearly did, conceive of forgiveness happening at least under the ICR plan. So
Hmm.
we're going to say like ICR plan forgiveness, totally legit. Anything besides that, we're going to say based off of the higher court's guidance, no, you can't do that. And so at least that would keep ICR open, right?
Hmm. And
And then
IVR.
And IBR would stay open like the Eighth Circuit said it would, no matter what. And then
Yep.
the pay option maybe stays open on a technicality where you can stay on it and get PSLF credit, but you can't actually get discharged while enrolled on it. And then you just have to make sure that you've got a partial financial hardship when you're trying to get it actually discharged at the end. So
Mm-hmm.
I guess that's some predictions. The other big problem though with all this, Megan, and I've been thinking about this, is the budget reconciliation anvil that's going to drop at some point. We know that's going to happen. And
Mm-hmm.
so simultaneously, you have to have a two-track mind going because you have to be thinking about what's the court's going to do. And then you have to be thinking about what the legislative branch is going to do because they could pass something that makes it really different from the current state with the courts. And
Mm-hmm.
they really could with that budget reconciliation bill for like especially new borrowers that could see a dramatically different set of rules. And then at the same time, there's the executive branch. The executive branch has not had time to sit down and think long term how they want to do things yet. And so with Biden, I think it took until Megan, I'm not sure if you remember, but I thought it was October of the first year they were in office before they put together their negotiated rulemaking committee, if you recall at
Yeah.
all.
Was that
Uh,
2020? October
it was
2020?
2021 because Biden
2021.
was sworn in 2021,
Yep.
and so
That's right.
I think they got it together in like October, and I think they
Mm-hmm.
had the negotiated rulemaking hearings in like October, December, etc. And then I think they came out with the final rule sometime after that, like in the spring. I think memory serves me right, or maybe it was
Mm-hmm.
even a little bit later than that. And then they came out with their initial rule, which was going to be like implementing save like early, right? So that was like
Mm-hmm.
mid 2023 when they were trying to implement all the save stuff early, the early implementation part. And then the
Yep.
final rule was supposed to fully go into place in July of 2024. And the reason, of course, we know is you have to publish the rule by November of the preceding year for it to take effect mid-year the following year. So like they would have to get everybody in a room fast, come up with a negotiated rulemaking on like new rules for IBR, and then
Mm-hmm.
they would have to finalize the rules by November, which they're not going to do. And so that if you finalize rules in like 2026, that means that those new rules couldn't take effect until July 2027. So so that's the other big piece of this is the
Yeah.
executive branch is also like all over the place on what they're going to do. And so you've got I think that's why I'm under so much pressure trying to like explain this to people because I
Mm-hmm.
know how complicated it is because I've been
It's
doing this
very
for nine
complicated.
years.
Yeah.
And you've got to predict what's the legislative branch going to do, what's the courts going to do, what's the White House going to do, and then you have to
Mm-hmm.
synthesize all of it together. So I mean,
Yeah.
this is really flexing my muscles to the max. I mean, I'm dead. This is like the student loan equivalent of absolute max bench press day, right?
Yeah.
And I'm doing my best to try
Mm-hmm.
to figure out what it means, but I'm obviously not. I'm not like, I'm not Warren Buffett, right? I mean, I don't know. Maybe I'm like the little oracle of student loans, but I don't know if I'm like, as good as him, right? So it's like, okay, I think we're gonna give you people some pretty good analysis on this show, though, long term, like stuff that's
Yeah.
gonna calm you down when you're super stressed. Like I can sense it too, right? Like we
Oh,
get on these
yeah, for
calls,
sure.
people are freaking stressed right now. Like they are
Yeah. The
worried, they are,
inboxes, like all the folks.
inboxes, like
Mm-hmm.
it's a
Comments.
lot. It's a lot. And the thing is we haven't even had, I don't want to freak people out, but we haven't even had people's IBR payments jump up yet. And I
Mm-hmm.
think that financially aware people that listen to this podcast like already know that and they're already aware and ready for that to happen, right? But
Mm-hmm.
the not financially aware people, which
That's
I
when
think
it's gonna
that's what
hit.
keeps me up at night is like
Yeah.
those people are going to get destroyed. And what I
Yeah.
mean by that is like, we know people haven't recertified in so long. And even if they
Mm-hmm.
have, it's like on the save plan rules, which allowed, majority of
Lower
people to get
payments.
$0 payments, right? So like
Mm-hmm.
you're going to have all these people that are like haven't paid attention to student loans in terms of making room in their budgets for that in like literally 5 years. And they're all going to get these super high payments like all at
Mm-hmm.
once overnight. So if
Yeah.
you're
What was that
predicting, if you're,
study?
yeah,
What was that study I saw on the Slack channel from this weekend? You were doing some deep dives, but wasn't it like 44% of people right now have a $0 payment on an income
it's more
driven
than
repayment
that. No,
plan?
it's more than that. It's like
Was it
50,
more?
50 something percent.
Wow. Okay.
The save plan, more than half of people paid nothing.
Yeah.
And, and that was by design. Like the Biden
Yeah.
administration wanted that.
It was almost
And
like a
like
loophole to get forgiveness because the 10 and 20,000 didn't get approved. It was
you
almost
couldn't get
like,
it approved. Yeah. Well, I
yeah.
remember some of those negotiated rulemaking committees listening into those hearings, and it was like, I really wish. I mean, we've gotten a little bit of heat because I started that SLP Insiders newsletter. Most people
Hmm.
have been, pretty understanding and stuff about it.
Hmm.
But like the Biden administration is case in point why you need to keep your mouth shut a little bit more. I'm sorry, right? Like just to be honest,
Yeah.
because I remember in those negotiated rulemaking hearings, like one of the borrower protection center people was like, let's do 400% of the poverty line and let's make it like, 2.5% of it. It was some like, it was some like formula that would like obviously result in everybody paying nothing.
Yeah.
And almost everybody paying nothing.
Almost
And it's
like
like,
family size being 99, right?
yeah, like literally what the student loan scam groups do. Yeah, let's just put family size 93 and then you don't have any student loan payment. Look at us, we're geniuses, right? Like, and then the guy got arrested on a plane to Mexico with a body stuffed full of cash in every orifice in his body. It's right. That's probably TMI, but that actually happened to some
It did
student loan
actually
scam
happen,
group.
yeah.
That's literally, and that I like to tell people too about that report. The GAO published a really like brutal takedown of Department of Ed's IDR practices. And it came
Mm-hmm.
out in late February of 2020. And then the pandemic happened like 2 weeks after that. So like
Mm.
nobody cared at the time because the pandemic took over the world.
Oh, yeah,
Um,
for
but it's
sure.
true that like there's all these like fraudulent practices out
Mm-hmm.
there with IDR stuff. And it's absolutely true that the administration is going to be looking at that, right? You
Mm-hmm.
have to think that they will. And so that's why like I'm always trying to be careful and conservative with how we do things because I don't
Yeah.
want ever there to be any question that somebody qualifies for something or somebody did something the right way, right? Like but yeah, like so the family size of 93, we were talking about that in context of what again? Just
The
the
400%, like them coming
yeah,
out
poverty. So
with that idea of 400%.
okay,
And then,
so
yeah.
think about the way they released the IDR waiver. The IDR waiver, they said this could benefit, and the PSLF waiver. PSLF waiver was like this could save borrowers up to $2 billion, or
Mm-hmm.
this could. I think they said this could save borrowers $2 billion or more, and
Mm-hmm.
this could save like 13,000 borrowers or more this amount, and that
Mm-hmm.
was like deliberately deceptive
Yeah.
by the Biden administration because they were trying to fly under the radar so that wouldn't be a bunch of lawsuits by these FFEL agencies to block it. And guess what? PSLF waiver happened, right?
Mm-hmm.
IDR waiver, same thing. They deliberately understated what it actually was.
Mm-hmm.
I remember like calling reporters about it when it came out because it was such a big deal, and they had no idea of what it was because they didn't understand like how the formulas were going to be applied right away like
Mm-hmm.
like like I did just from doing this every day versus being on a broad education beat, right? So it's like they flew under the radar, but then what did they do with the save plan, right? It was
Screamed it
it
from the
was
rooftops.
it was hallelujah save plan. Let's get all the TikTokers to come to the White House and do
Yeah.
TikTok dances called SAVE, and then
Yeah.
they would get on like the TV and they'd be like, those radical conservative Supreme Court people, which, depending on your political views, maybe that's an accurate statement, right? And like, but then it's like, but I'm gonna get around them and I'm gonna go right behind them and I'm gonna make this save plan to dodge their ruling. And it's like,
Mm-hmm.
come on, man, come on. Like that's like I don't know what that's like, but it's like I don't
It's
even know what
almost
it's like.
like
But
it's almost like getting away with something, like somebody getting away with something, but then like,
I just thought of an example, right?
yeah.
I'm gonna go eat a cookie in front of my
Mm-hmm.
toddler, but I'm gonna do it quietly. I'm gonna
Mm-hmm.
like go around the corner. I'm gonna put it in my hand and I'm gonna eat it, but I'm never gonna have more of a profile and a very small little profile of the cookie while I'm eating it, right?
Mm-hmm.
But then if I go in front of my 2-year-old and I just say, look at this cookie. Oh my gosh, this
It's
is the
only for
tastiest
me.
cookie. It's only for me. I'm just gonna eat the heck out of this cookie. And guess what? I don't care that you want the cookie because all of it's going in my belly, right? What do you think's gonna freaking happen with the 2-year-old?
Yeah.
Screaming, anger, upset, right? And
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, just because we have a lot of people of different political persuasions, I'm not necessarily comparing the administration to a 2-year-old, I mean, whatever, right? But like, you get what I'm saying, right? Like, if regardless of your political persuasion, regardless of how you feel about politics, the reality is, if you want certain loopholes to stick around, you need to keep your mouth shut a little bit more. And
Yeah.
so that is why I decided to do the Insiders newsletter, in addition to just obviously being able to support the mission of what we do. I mean, obviously,
Yeah.
it is supportive of what we
Continuing the
do.
free newsletter because that's still
Yeah,
going. We're having that every
it's
Thursday,
we're
like we
still
always have. And
we're still
then,
doing it. Yeah. And
yeah.
like, wealth clients, if you feel any certain way about it, just send me an email. I'm always happy to take any kind of wealth clients like input on these things, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
we're just doing the thought process I had about it, just to the people that's like wealth clients are having everything implemented for them. They don't need these
Yes,
loopholes. Like,
they've got their
if
planner
anything,
doing
like
all
keep
of
your
this
keep
stuff.
your blood
Yeah.
pressure lower and don't get all of these like loopholes that you like have to worry about whether or not they apply to your situation, because most of them won't. And
Hmm.
then, people that like can't afford wealth, well, that's a great way to get a lot of some tips, right? Is if you can't afford wealth, you could do the paid newsletter, the insiders, right? Because you can get extra stuff that you can kind of implement on your own. But
Hmm.
again, me eating the cookie quietly instead of like waving it in front of people, taunting people,
Yeah.
right? And then
Yeah.
the consult clients, like some people also like they don't want financial planning, but they also don't want to like have to do everything on their own. And so the consult service is still going to be around in our primary offering, I think, because it's just
Hmm.
like most people just want to have a quick call, get the expert answer, and move on with their lives and not be constantly reading,
The student
newsletters.
loans. Yeah. Yeah. And
So
you've got
yeah,
examples too. You have multiple examples of where you also shouted certain loopholes from the rooftops, and then all of a sudden something changed. And
100%.
the,
I mean,
like,
I'll tell, like, example is that save plan family size loophole, right?
yeah.
Like, literally, I
Because
was
you were
like,
excited
yeah,
about it. I remember like you were pumped
yeah,
about it. And it was
yeah.
like it was hard for you to contain your excitement. And you said it all over the newsletter. And then
Oh,
all of a
yeah.
sudden, like a week or two later, it was like, oh yeah, we got to make this amendment. Congress was like, we got to make this little amendment. That's not going to happen. And then they changed it.
The undersecretary of policy at the time followed me on Twitter, and I
Hmm.
didn't think about this, right? But he's actually DM'd me, the former one, DM'd me on like policy regs and like clarification. And like I just
Mm.
didn't have the social awareness of thinking, hey, if there's like a cool loophole, like maybe you shouldn't blab about it. Maybe you should keep your mouth shut, you dumb Travis.
Yeah.
Like, and so yeah, I remember I even posted like Excel models of like what it would mean if
Yeah.
they didn't change the definition of family size. I was like, a family of five can make 130 grand a year and pay nothing by
Yeah.
filing separate. Whereas if you file joint, the limit was only 70. And so that saves the average family $400 a month. And so they've realized that. And they,
Hmm. Somebody saw
and
that and went back to the next meeting and was like, you know what? I
I
need to
think it was,
change
I think
this.
it was the undersecretary of ed. The former
Yeah.
undersecretary of ed was very sharp on regs and like how to accomplish things through the regs.
Hmm.
And I think that that's probably who saw it and why
Yeah.
it got killed.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Well, and
like,
another
and
example too, like you've been cited in cases before. Like you had an
oh,
article cited.
okay. I should not say this because people will be really mad at me, but I'm gonna say it anyway. Well, I mean, okay, I don't think they should be mad at me because I am not the reason that the lawsuit happened, right? Transparently,
Hmm.
I am not the reason the Save Plan lawsuit happened, right?
Correct. Yeah.
But it is true that I released I didn't even think about that. That's another example why I need to
Hmm.
shut the bleep up.
Yeah.
I released a detailed analysis showing how much borrowers would save on the save plan if it was enacted. And my projected number of savings for borrowers over 10 years was about close to anywhere from 500 billion to $1 trillion. And the I released that I think first,
Hmm.
and then Penn's budget model, which is like this widely respected nonprofit budget model place, it's like CBO kind of. They released their numbers, I think after me, that found it was going to be like 400 billion. And the administration was saying it was only going to be 100 billion, but that was because they were assuming that cancellation would go through and therefore it would only cost 100 billion, right? And they were also trying
Hmm.
to make it look cheaper so that it would pass.
Yeah. Kind of lie with
And
numbers a little bit.
right,
Technicalities.
so I was cited in a federal lawsuit that people were suing that were for people that were suing to block the save plan, and that
Yeah.
was
As
a
like
like
a
that was a
resource
like
or like,
yeah
yeah, like
they
something
yeah
attached as a resource, basically.
well
And
it was an official part of the lawsuit. It was an example
mhm.
of like different people's cost estimates, and I was like, oh wow, um
Crap.
I can't afford to have a full-time bodyguard. I mean, you know what I mean? So like, I mean, so maybe I need to shut the bleep
Yeah.
up and or at least be a little bit more careful and more circumspect about what I say.
Hmm. So I think
And
you just
so
realize like this is a very niche topic. There's not a lot of big talking heads in this niche area of financial
it's very
planning, like student
specific.
loans.
Yeah.
Like people don't want to touch student loans, but we, of course, like that's our everyday. And
Yeah.
so if anybody's gonna like look up something or like look for information on what the average person is thinking about this kind of stuff, like we're a target. Like student loan planner can be a target for information to be used for us or against us on what we want, right? And so the insiders, the idea behind that was like, this is a close knit community, and let's keep it pretty close knit for the most sensitive stuff that we talk about.
Yeah,
Is that how you would put it?
exactly. And you might see stuff in the newsletter marketing it, right? Like if you don't like that, take all the free stuff, enjoy all the free stuff,
Yeah.
right?
We put out
And
a
if you
ton of free stuff.
Well, this is obviously is free, right? And if
Yeah.
you do want to get some of our best analysis, it's true that the equivalent of the save plan might cost $1 trillion, and the save plan loophole with family size could save you 500 a month. Those kind of loopholes that would get a lot of attention if I bragged about it are definitely going to go behind the paywall, or they're going to be implemented directly by our financial planners if somebody's an
Mhm.
SLP Wealth client, for example, right? So again, or implemented via a consult if people want to book a consult. So it's just a way to get more cutting edge info out to people in a quiet way. Obviously, people from the administration could sign up and read it, and I can't control that. But the thing is like I was talking about the IDR waiver, but I was talking about it like just more quietly, right?
Mhm.
Like I didn't like blab about it as excitedly, and
Yeah,
um and
there
I
was a
and I
difference.
and I
Hmm.
explained what it meant, but I also wasn't like braggadocious about it. And we helped people get it, but we helped people get it quietly.
Hmm.
And so I don't know. I mean, I think that that's an example of like, well, people in the administration could like, I mean, they would still see my analysis on that. But the thing is you have to realize that it's a problem to want to sue to block it. And the reality is like amplification is a big thing that matters, right? So when I send something out on our email list that's got 6 figures of readers on it, it gets amplified and
Hmm.
paraphrased, rewritten, distributed in other formats that I don't even have control over, right? Because it goes out to so many people that like people use our stuff like paraphrased
Yeah.
in like other viral videos and marketing and stuff
Hmm.
like so it's like so that's like the amplification. So it's like if you have, you know, tens of thousands of people bragging about a loophole online or saying how excited they are about it, that's a much lower kind of like uh, velocity, right?
Hmm.
Than if you have a smaller group of people that are talking about it. So,
Hmm.
I don't know. That was the thought of it. If somebody wants to tar and feather me, I'm ready for it. You can't do anything worse to me than the servicers and the administration's done to me. So, I'm good. Like, throw me under the bus. Like I've been already hit by a dump truck a couple times with this, all these like freaking rule changes. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think this was a good kind of just refresh because yeah, I think everybody's feeling whiplash. There's a lot being talked about right now. It's hard to make sense of everything, so we're gonna do our best to stay timely. This is why I pulled Travis in. I already recorded an episode for Friday, but I'm pushing it to next Friday because I felt like we needed to maybe address some of the more time sensitive things. And that's what's good about having an episode post 2 times a week now. We've got a Tuesday and a Friday episode where we could try to keep up to date with things a little faster as things quickly change. But anything else you want to chat about on this one?
Maybe one day we'll go to one a week again, like if this is just too exhausted. I don't know, it's like those Pod Save America people, they were putting out like
Yeah.
3 pods a week, and now they hop on, they're like, world's burning. Nothing to talk about though, except the world's burning. See you next week.
Yeah.
I'm just kidding. I'm,
Well,
I'm
to
just
be
joking around.
fair, my Friday ones, y'all know if you listen to my Friday ones, I try to keep it upbeat. We're talking about other
Oh
financial
yeah.
planning topics, building wealth, building our like
Good
portfolio. Like,
cop, bad cop, right?
oh
Yeah,
yeah,
you
for
come out every
sure. I'm the
Friday. You're
good
like,
cop.
guys, it's the weekend.
It's
Life is
Friday.
good. It's Friday. Here's a way to think that's gonna make you rich. And then I come on Tuesday. I'm like, it's the middle of the week. Life is terrible. Your future is over. Yeah,
Right.
your student loans might be okay, but everything else is bleak. So I'm gonna try to be a lot more positive because I think people could use a little more positivity in the world
Yeah.
in general, right? And I think
Hmm.
that again, like I think that what matters is just you know, deep breaths. Like in recessions, like people that have
Hmm.
the education levels of our audience only have unemployment rates that go up by a couple percent. That means the vast majority of people are going to be keeping their jobs, even though there are a lot of people that are stressed and that have lost jobs from the recent cuts, right?
Hmm.
Overall, especially if you're in the medical world, you're probably keeping your job, you're probably keeping your income. That has really positive implications for your life goals and your,
Yeah. For your
financial
finances.
outcomes.
Hmm.
And so that just means that like, yeah, this is stressful, but let's try to put things in perspective
Yeah.
of there's still lots of loopholes, probably a lot that people don't even know about. We can keep things under control, keep people calm. keep putting out the content we do. And then, you know
Mm-hmm.
what? It's amazing. Every time Travis gets hit by a dump truck, I just get up and my beard's even longer. You know what I mean? So I'm just going to keep looking like the abandoned mountain man. I'm like Leo DiCaprio in The Revenant, except I've got the same wife and I don't do the weird, multiple girlfriends thing that he does.
Yeah.
But, sorry, this is a Friday episode. So I thought it might be fun to be a little silly.
Oh, well, thanks for joining me today, Travis. And I hope everyone has a lovely weekend coming up. Hopefully, this made you laugh a little bit, right? Any closing
Yeah.
words before I close it out?
I mean, just manage your alcohol intake right now. Like, I'm really into non-alcoholic beer, non-alcoholic wine, which is kind of like grape juice, honestly, but it's still interesting.
Hmm.
So, whatever your drink of choice is, that's not going to send you down a spiral. Enjoy it copiously, within
Yeah.
limits of moderation. And honestly, I did a live the other day where I was just kind of like, "Hey, this is like not in my self-interest, but like, yeah, just like tune me out for 2 months and then like turn it back on like in 2 months. You'll probably be like way better off." But I don't know. If you
Right.
do find the jokes and the levity fun, then thank you, obviously, listener, you listening to this podcast. We do appreciate it. We do see
Hmm.
when you download it, and it does keep us going. When you leave a
Hmm.
review of our podcast, it does keep us going, and it helps us continue to be motivated to put this stuff out there. So
Yep.
thank you for you listening to this, for continuing to, even though I know this is sometimes a stressful topic for people.
Definitely. Yeah. Use that meditation app on your watch. I've recently discovered that myself. And if you have an Apple Watch, it's free. I'm sure there's a bunch of other free meditation apps, but even just 5 minutes really changes my mood, changes my pulse. So
Yeah, I
maybe
mean,
try that
I
out
don't,
as well.
5 minutes of a warm bath with kids in bed. That's my meditation I need. You know what I mean? Just decompressing is really important right now. I think go on a
Yes.
walk, get outside, do something
Hmm.
to distract
Breaks.
yourself. Right? Don't check the
Hmm.
news so much. Like maybe go on a light news diet right now.
Yeah.
Like
Take
you
notifications for
can,
news off, maybe.
yeah, like and read more sparingly, and just be ready for when stuff really does change, and we'll be there for you when it does.
Definitely. Well, enjoy your weekend and we'll catch you on the next one. Thank you, everyone.
Bye. Are you ready to unlock financial freedom faster with SLP Wealth? Get high quality, affordable, student loan aware financial planning and get the best deal for it anywhere that you're going to find working with your own dedicated SLP Wealth financial planner that is able to give you the best integrated advice across financial planning, investments, and tax, along with all the student loan hacks that you need and that impact all other areas of your financial planning. The deal you're going to find here is special just for podcast listeners. If you go to promo.slpwealth.com, you can sign up with a great discount off your first month. That's promo.slpwealth.com.